said you can bury the workman, but the work will go on. You can silence the voices, but you can't stop the song.
Welcome to Wheeling the Pathways of Life Unplugged with your host, Brain Fitzpatrick. Wheeling the Pathways of Life Unplugged is a snapshot of the day-to-day experiences of disabled individuals as they navigate the world around us. We wish to shed light and open your eyes on a new perspective of people with disabilities. And by going unplugged, we can discuss viewpoints we hope will challenge our viewers' points of view. Most of us have disabilities we must live with, but what defines us is the way we deal with them. And now, here's your host, Brain Fitzpatrick.
Hello, folks. We have a very special show today. I am on Zoom right now with Commissioner Morales from the Department of Public Works. Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Good afternoon, Brian. How are you? Thanks for having me here.
Good. We're gonna have a very interesting show with a few technical surprises for the people out there watching us today. And hopefully this is gonna be informative.
Looking forward to it.
Why don't we answer the question that we always begin with? Are roundabouts worth having? Are roundabouts useful in reducing accidents?
That's a very good question, Brian.
Yes.
We can jump into that. Well, here in Pittsfield, we only have one roundabout in the modern sense of the definition of what a roundabout is.
Yes.
So, in that sense, we have to use that information to analyze how and what the impacts are.
Yes.
For having a roundabout. So we know from empirical data, from tests in other places, from documenting crashes, that roundabouts are a safer option. We have a normal intersection with one lane in each direction, crossing four ways. A four-way intersection has more conflict points than a roundabout. And those conflict points that are introduced in the roundabout are only of the type where you're sideswiping or you're coming at an angle on that crash, if it happens. So it does a few things. Roundabouts slow speeds down, and roundabouts change the nature of if there is a collision. It changes the nature of how that collision occurs. And the third thing is it reduces the number of conflict points. So all those things together combine to form a safer intersection overall.
What would you say to those people that roundabouts are a waste of money?
Well, roundabouts can be expensive if you have to take a lot of land to build them. Roundabouts do tend to be larger in space than a traditional street signal for an intersection. However, if you have the space, there is a good opportunity to have a roundabout. It doesn't fit everywhere. We cannot just say roundabouts in every intersection. They will not fit everywhere, and it will become more, very costly if we are required to purchase land, purchase space for that purpose. So we have to be careful about that.
Just so people know, you are not involved in any way with the state project with BMC, are you?
So with the construction of the project, we are not involved. That is a state-run project. It is state funds and a state-run project. I, in my capacity, so a few ways that I am involved. As a transportation official head in Pittsfield, I represent Pittsfield in the Transportation Advisory Committee and in the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which are the two organizational structures that assign the funding from state and federal sources for transportation-related projects. We voted on the BMC area project back in 2014. I was not here when that happened, but my predecessor was.
Sure.
And the second thing is, in this process, sometimes the municipality has to run with the design and perform that design. Other times it is all done by the state. In this case, with BMC, the city was the one carrying the burden and effort of the design. So what we have there is a combination, because it has to be approved by the state, is a combination of a city-led design with the approval and guidance from the state for their construction.
Before we get too far, why don't we show the data year to date on the Tyler Street roundabout?
Well, I wanted to start with a visualization. I'm assuming everyone can see the screen. Can you see the screen, Brian?
Yes, I can.
This is the Tyler Street roundabout. It's our first modern roundabout in Pittsfield. And as you can see, changing this from a type of intersection that carries, I'm going to show you in a second something here. I think everyone can probably remember how this looked like. This is during construction, so I'm not going to show that. But this was for a 5-way intersection with 2 sets of stop signs, very dangerous. So what happened is we were able, and I'm going to show that here. We were able to, that's not here it is. You can see this one, right?
Yeah.
We were able to lower, this is from 2021 through 2025. We were able to lower the collisions at this intersection over the last 5 years or 4 years. So that's it does work. And the key part about this is there may, even with roundabouts being installed, there may be an increase in collisions. That can happen. The problem is when you do not take into account how or what is the outcome from those collisions. They become property damage less than injury. So you can see in 2021, there were 4 collisions that involved property damage. And there were 7 collisions that involved, or I think 3 collisions that involved non-fatal injury.
Yeah. So,
In 2022, there were no collisions that involve any injury. In 2023, no collisions that involved any injury. In 2024, one collision with injury. Nothing so far in 2025. So
Okay.
that is one of the most important things is there may be a collision with a side swipe or a slow, low speed collision, but the human injury factor is much lower.
yeah. It is very clear that with the roundabout is much safer than without it. Because if we go back to before we had roundabouts, it was much worse than it was
I would say so.
back when we had it. Back when we didn't have it.
Brian, I wanna do something. I wanna show people how the new roundabout at BMC is looking like from the air.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm gonna share my screen now to show the public
Okay.
watching.
Okay.
So this is BMC on the west side over here. This is First Street turning onto North Street, and this is where the roundabout is. Can you tell it's a roundabout?
Yes. Like,
So this is from September of last year, and by the end of this year, this roundabout will be functional. The project schedule has the whole project to be completed early in 2025 with the last landscaping stuff.
what was the rationale with extending the sidewalks on the? I heard there was extending sidewalks on that project as well.
Yeah, well, the project, like this project, like all projects done in Pittsfield now with any federal state funds, have to accommodate all users, especially those that are most vulnerable.
Okay.
So people walking, people on a wheelchair, people using their bicycle. That's the most vulnerable user of the road, and we have to account for that above all else, for their safety, especially when we're dealing with in an environment that's urban in nature, an urban environment as opposed to a rural road setting where street design or road design is meant for moving people around as quickly as possible. So in this case, we're moving on vehicles. In this case, we're moving people around effectively, safely outside of a vehicle and protecting them at its core.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to bring up too is, Ricardo doesn't do this alone, but Ricardo seems to be one that gets the most blame if something's not done. I don't think it is blame, but I mean, Ricardo, the Department of Public Works isn't doing this or isn't doing that. He can only do what's approved and what's able to be done within the time frame it needs to be done. So it's not a case of we're ignoring it, not a case of we're looking at putting it off the next year. If we had the money, we'd do everything. I mean,
that's true. We have to inevitably prioritize. Yeah. It's important that we prioritize to get the most out of our funding. You know,
Get
um,
get a bang, get a get the most bang for our buck, as they
right?
say. I mean,
Yep,
um,
that's true.
and you gotta understand, people, that Ricardo is the most accessible, not all the time, even for me, but the most.
Sometimes I'm very busy,
And
but hey, I try.
I'm, I'm the exception because I don't think everybody's got his personal cell phone number, but
No, don't say it out loud.
no, but I don't think everybody's got that. But I will say that you're the most accessible DPW director I've ever seen.
That's the goal. I think we are as public servants. We need to be accessible. We need to communicate as much as we can, and I try to do that with everything we do here. So it's I find that very important part of my job.
Even if it's me calling you, check and see where you are and stuff, it's very
Yeah,
important that I know that people can reach out to you and know where you guys are exactly.
right.
Um, Now let's talk about the winter that just passed. You and I were talking before the show, and this was one of the worst. This is one of the worst winters in a long time.
Yeah, it's been a rough winter, um, and I'm glad that it's over. Let's put it that
Yeah.
that's it's probably an understatement. I'm certainly glad that it's over. The this winter we're gonna come out with some, as we do every winter, just because of how we handle our budgets in terms of winter maintenance and overtime. We're gonna come in with some funds that will need to be appropriated in addition to what we had originally appropriated. So that's going to be in front of the city council soon, potentially, if not being able to do that internally. In addition to that, what I can say is that despite that effort, I'm gonna show my screen now. Despite that effort, we are still um, tracking to be well within our wheelhouse of expenses. So since 2020, our expenses have been slowly going up based on the market of things, right? We have to continue to purchase material. We have to continue to hire labor for contractors for plowing. Those costs keep going up. The material keeps going up. The um, the some winters like 2023 and 2025 were a little more harsher than the other winters with more ice. That is reflected in the work we do here. But if you compare to the work we did, how we were dealing with winter maintenance in FY20, in FY17, 18, 19, we're nowhere near the expenses we were seeing in those years. So this is to show the public that we are committed to spending the right amount of money, maintaining our streets the best we can through winter, and being responsible about how we spend this money.
Ricardo, does that include the repairs for the repairs for the potholes and stuff like that? Does that include that for the repairs for the winter?
No, this does not include pothole repairs. This
Okay.
is just solely vehicle and equipment maintenance,
Okay.
fuel used in the winter months.
Okay.
Maintenance, by the way, just on vehicles, winter vehicles. Contractor costs, material for, rock salt. We have 4 types of material we use. We use rock salt. We use treated rock salt with magnesium chloride. We use sand, and sometimes we mix the rock salt and the sand. And the 4th material is liquid magnesium chloride we use to mix additional content into our existing materials. So again, materials, overtime on the folks that keep our streets safe, contractors, and equipment maintenance. Those are the 4 large categories, and fuel, 5 large categories that are shown in this in our expenses.
When you need a police officer to assist with traffic and stuff being like cars being in the way and stuff like that during a winter storm, do you have to take that out of your budget, or is that just in the city?
We pay that out of our budget. Yes.
Okay.
It's a small amount, but it is not paid out of anywhere else. It's paid out of the winter budget.
Okay. So the overtime for extra officers comes out here. But
The overtime specifically for that type of work, yes.
Yes. So what I'd like to go do now is doing sidewalk repairs and stuff are beginning as soon as possible, right?
So sidewalk repairs, we're introducing. We're right now in the. We're going to be putting out to bid a $200,000 worth of work under CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant. That is going to be managed by the community development specific areas where that money can on the only areas that money can be spent. In addition to that, we are going to be submitting to the City Council an additional fund request for another $500,000 to finish some sidewalk work we started last year and continue that this year.
Just so people understand, the reason why sidewalks are so important for people in wheelchairs, they gotta be big enough for the wheelchairs, and they gotta be safe enough for the wheelchair to use. They can't have a lot of bumps and a lot of big transitions because it's very hard in a chair. And yes, this was not on city property, but I took a tumble last year off a sidewalk in a parking lot going out of a door because the sidewalk was too small for the wheelchair. And I don't want to do that again.
No, that must have been terrible.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you had to go through that.
Thank you, but that's just part of the situation of being disabled. But what I'm very impressed with is your response when I call you and say you need to fix something. Your response is, we hear you. We may not be able to get to it right away, but we'll work on it the best we can.
Yeah, we have to keep an eye out for what can be done when, and prioritize. We can't just simply say yes to everything. It's very important to prioritize.
And one thing that people gotta remember, you live here, so it's your
Yes.
city, it's your sidewalks, it's your streets. So you're not only getting paid to do it, but you actually use these streets on a daily basis, and
Absolutely.
you take pride in what you do. These people that say, he's just doing it, he's just giving the city a hard time. That's not true. That's far from the truth. I've seen Ricardo out there in the field working on projects with me and working on other situations.
Well, yeah, I hope people realize that, because it's, I take pride on what I do, and I have a family here. I have 2 kids, and they will see, they will live here and experience the city that we're building all together.
Yeah. One of the things I want to ask you about, I don't know if this is past, but they're talking about putting in lights, traffic cameras. Do you know anything about that? The traffic.
So that is not a traffic cameras that give out tickets are not approved yet by the state. So until that happens, we will not be able to do that. Does that make sense?
We are working on getting that approved.
The state is. The state.
Yeah. So when that happens, the city is the one that's gonna comply with it, probably.
Well, yeah, when that happens, we will have the opportunity to do that. Yeah. It's gonna be a learning curve, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But we'll have the opportunity to do that.
The other thing I wanted to talk to you about a little bit, to give some history on what I did, and what was it, about 4 or 5 years ago now, we took a walk around the city and we looked at the sidewalks and the curb cuts and the areas that needed to be improved on North Street. And fortunately, now I'm in negotiations with the mayor's office to go back over the same areas again to look at the improvements and to see what else needs to be done. There are a couple areas that I wanted to look at too and see what can be done about those. But we gotta take one step at a time, and
definitely. Well, with all the work that we're doing and the work that we're planning on doing, we're definitely thinking about like I mentioned, the most vulnerable user of the road. And we have some planned work happening for North Street specifically. And, in about a week, next Wednesday, the 9th, we will have an open house for the re-envisioning of North Street. It's going to be an open house from 4 to 7 p.m. We're going to be at the storefront on North Street in front of the Hot Plate Brewery location, right at the intersection of North Street and School. And, you know, it's going to be important for people to participate and make their voice heard. The next day, we're going to have some stakeholder meetings, and then we're going to continue the conversation throughout the design, hoping to land on a design that is valued by everyone. But we're not stopping there. Obviously, you know, we've been talking about all of the work that we're doing. And Brian, I wanted to share my screen again because it's going to be, we are going to be very busy this year with road work. We're going to be, let me share my screen here.
Okay.
So, on the screen, there's a map and there's red lines.
Okay.
Those red lines, I'm going to name them. We have South Street from South Mountain Road to West and East Housatonic. We have First Street from East Street to the BMC area. We have North Street from the BMC area all the way to the town line in Lanesboro. We have West Street, right from College Way and Government Drive to just before the school on West Street. And then we have East Street from Merrill Road to Lyman Street, and we have Lyman Street being resurfaced, and we have Newell Street being resurfaced. Yeah. These are all projects that are combined state and Pittsfield funding to do this work. So every single major portion of, every single major roadway leading into the center of Pittsfield will be under construction.
And I want people to know we're not stopping there. It may take us some time, but we'll get to every intersection in the city. We'll get to every...
That's the goal.
Surface.
I wanted to share with you the design we have for West Street. That's this design.
Okay.
On the right here, that's the intersection of West Street where it turns into West Street. We call it the West and West intersection. We're adding a signal at this intersection this year.
Yep.
And further down the road by the park, we are adding a raised crosswalk. That is where Shalon Millord lost her life crossing the street with her daughter. The daughter survived, thankfully. But we have to raise awareness and slow people down because people die. And this is not something we can accept. We know how to build better.
We know how to build better, but if it's not approved, and it's not approved money-wise, we can't do it.
Right.
I applaud you for stepping out there and making sure things get done, not necessarily in a timely manner, but I'm sure there's times where you want to pull your hair out because you're just saying, I'm so frustrated and so I want to get this done, but I don't have the money to do it.
That's me every other week.
Yeah. Keep in mind, I do watch the city council meetings about every time you're on, and believe me, I've seen you fight like crazy. And me personally, I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
If the city could only know what Commissioner Morales does on a daily basis. Besides putting up with my phone calls.
Besides putting out roundabouts.
Putting on roundabouts, putting up with my phone calls, every other day, between you and Judy, I don't know who I talk to more.
Yeah.
One of the other areas that I want to discuss is your other arch nemesis in the city, which is garbage.
Our solid waste management.
Yeah. How is that process going?
So Brian, it's been going really good. You know, we built this system with equity in mind. We built this system so that we could not only increase our recycling rates, but also make sure that people who need more are the only ones who pay for more. People who don't need more, strategically, do not have to pay for any additional any additional containers. That's why we introduced the 48-gallon toter, a 48-gallon recycling toter, and trash toter. That's why if you need an additional capacity, say you need a total of 96, that's the two 48-gallon toters for trash, then you have to pay an additional fee for that service. That fee is $40 every 3 months. That's around $13 a month. In addition to how much of your taxes go towards trash and recycling, that comes out to less than the amount you would have to pay if you were to shop around with other haulers for this service. So you're still paying less, even if you have a $40 fee every 3 months. Now, that being said, our main goal was to reduce solid waste, increase recycling. We were at 9.5% recycling rate. That is we measure every single ton of waste and recycling, and we divide how much of it is recycling by that number. And that was about 9.5%. Do you, after now, since October, we've been at this, do you want to guess where we are now in recycling, in a recycling rate?
I'd say 60 to 70.
So a 60 to 70% recycling rate means that we're throwing out more recycling than trash. And that's very difficult to achieve, let alone probably impossible to achieve. Right now, I'm happy to say that we have doubled what we recycled before. We are now at 20% recycling rate. And that is massive.
20%.
To change that much from 10 roughly to 20% recycling rate in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. It is a drastic measure. It is incredible. It started to happen. It actually went to 20% in 3 months, and it has sustained for the next 3 months at 20%. It is, I'm beside myself. I think, my faith in Pittsfielders has been renewed.
Yeah, my faith in Pittsfielders has been renewed. To put a spotlight on the contractor that handles the actual implementation of this.
Casella.
It's Casella. And yes, they've had difficulties. Yes, they've had difficulties with equipment and stuff like that. But I think Casella is a huge part of why we're at where we are today.
So here's another thing that is important to note. In order to achieve how much trash we divert from the landfill into recycling, we had some goals we wanted to reach. And on average, our average household in Pittsfield would put out 18 to 1900 pounds of trash every year. Think about it. 18 to 1900 pounds of trash. We said with this program, we would reach somewhere between 14 and 1500 pounds per trash. And I'm gonna share my screen again
Okay.
to show some numbers. So you can see the screen now. On the left, you can see the blue line. That is how much trash a household generates cumulative every month till the end of the year in June. This is the fiscal year. In orange is how much we are currently generating since we started the program in October.
Wow.
The dotted line in black is our projection. So we are expected to be just under 1,500 pounds per household in Pittsfield. It is massive. Again, we have achieved this against, I cannot say it in a different way. It's faith restored in Pittsfielders. People were complaining that we were making them recycle or making them use less space for their trash. If you recycle, you will need less trash.
If you
less trash
recycle,
space.
you will need less space to be able to.
And that's how we've achieved the 20%.
And you'll be a little more careful with what you put in there if you gotta recycle, because you gotta realize you don't have enough space to be able to.
Most definitely. Oh, definitely.
And, you know.
So on the right side of the screen, what you can see there is what I was talking before, the diversion trends. So in blue, down below, around 10% was our recycling rate. In orange was our trash disposal rate, for data for about a year. As soon as we started the program, that started to change. They're never going to cross paths because, again, that would mean that we throw out more recycling than trash, and that's pretty much impossible in practice. And so the more we recycle, the better it will be, but we will reach a plateau around 25, I would say.
One question that I have, did the rates change for the multifamily residents?
This includes data for multifamily residences up to 3 households.
Okay. Because I know the landlords, when I found out about it, had to pay something like $200 a year to a quarter, not a year, $200 a quarter to receive trash pickup. Is that accurate?
So if it's a family of 4, so if it's a four family unit property,
yeah,
and the owner does not live there, then they have to, and they want to continue using the city of Pittsfield's service through Casella, they would have to pay $210 per household. I'm sorry, per quarter.
Okay.
That's only for non-resident, non-owner occupied for families.
In my case, I got a 3 family.
So for a 3 family, there's no additional cost. The only additional cost comes if you want an extra toter.
Okay.
And that is $40 or a quarter, or $160
Yeah.
every year for one extra toter.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You only charge for 4 residents, not 3 residents.
Correct.
Okay. That's good information because I was told it was 3, but it's 4. So that's good information.
Yeah.
Now, how is Casilla responded to some of the complaints that because I'm sure you guys have got complaints about Casilla not picking up on time and stuff like that. So how are they handling those?
So we have the health department handling nuisance issues, anything that has to do with not using the system the right way. And Casella, on the other hand, is issuing stickers when they can. Again, that one is more of an educational nature. You're not supposed to put a trash bag on top of the toter.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to leave bags laying on the side of the toter. It's not cardboard day, it's cans and bottles. It's not cans and bottles, it's cardboard day. Those kind of things. So we are issuing we see a lot of new issues, but and less so on repeat offenders.
Yeah, now let's talk a little bit about the program that I'm involved with as far as the backyard pickup. So many people didn't know about the backyard pickup until you introduced it to me, because I didn't even know, and I've been here since 1979.
Yep.
So, and
hey, I don't know if it started that long ago.
I know,
but yeah,
that was a long time.
we've had the backyard pickup as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
And with more awareness through this program, we were able to, I think the numbers are around triple. The amount of properties we do backyard pickup have tripled with this in the last year.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Ricardo. Because if it wasn't for you coming on this show, I don't think it would happen.
Yeah, hey, it's a service that is included in the service that Casella provides, so they have to provide.
One thing I did want to ask you is, when do we expect, when is the blacktop plants gonna open?
So right now we have nothing opened yet in Pittsfield or Lenoxdale. The closest one that's open is in West Sand Lake, New York. We're going there when possible. Yesterday we were there. We're getting blacktop. We're doing some patching. Very important work we're doing. We're expecting the Pittsfield and Lenoxdale plants to open sometime in mid-April. So And at the same time, next week, we're expecting to open a bid that we put out for contractors to work for the city to do some patching of their own. So we're going to double down on delivering some, very much needed patchwork in a lot of our streets, especially with all the potholes. This winter season, one of the biggest issues we had was the February 16th storm. We had a lot of water, a lot of ice, and what happens is with that water going inside the asphalt, when it freezes, it deforms the asphalt, it expands, and you could tell about 16 hours after the storm, you could tell driving down the road, it was still 15, 20 degrees. You could tell the roads were bumpy, where there didn't used to be any bumps. And I was thinking to myself, this is going to be, when I saw that, this is going to be a very bad pothole season.
Yeah. Before I go too far, because we got 7 minutes before the show's over, how do people get a hold of you, either by email or by phone, to express these concerns to you?
Yeah, so I'm going to give out 3 points of contact. The first one is the dpw@cityofpittsfield.org. That's a general email for our department. I have access to that email. So does, our deputy commissioner for operations, Jason Murphy, and our admin assistants. So we log anything that comes through there for any need. The second email is my own, rmorales@cityofpittsfield.org. That's RMORALES. And my phone number, 413-448-9768. That's my direct line. Yeah. And, I might not be able to answer it if I'm not in the office, but the office number is 413-499-97. I'm sorry, 413-499-9330.
And of course, you can always get a hold of me by my email at wheelingthepathwaytolife@gmail.com and leave me your concerns, and I will gladly forward them to Ricardo and get Ricardo to respond to me or you directly and see what we can do. And there's also, I don't want to get the address wrong, but what's the one that people can report problems to on the computer so you guys can track the problems, or, the streetscape or whatever that's called?
Well, you're talking about PitSmart, and
Yeah.
The best way to get there is by going online in a computer, yeah, and to go into the cityofpittsfield.org, and on the drop down on the menu on the left, you'll see a report an issue button, and that's how you start reporting an issue. On your smartphone, you can also download the PitSmart app. Okay. And with that app, you can log an issue.
Okay. What do you recommend? Do you think people should use PitSmart, or do you think people should call you or email you?
I think PitSmart needs to be the option to be used. It's useful for us to track information there, track the requests. It sends automatic messages to the user, the end user, and we can have communications back and forth through there.
Because of my disability and because of difficulty using the computer at times, I will continue to call you, but I will try to use PitSmart as much as
No,
possible.
you can always call me.
Even on Sunday,
Yeah, yeah. That's okay.
even on a Sunday. We Ricardo, you are the most easy and accessible member of the city that I've ever worked with, and so informative and so responsive to our concerns. I greatly appreciate you
Thank you.
doing everything you do, and I want you to know if there's ever a point where you need me, want me to go to a city council meeting and advocate for some of this, let me know, and I will gladly make the effort to get there.
Thank you.
Because I'm very passionate about where I live. It may be not the greatest neighborhood or the cleanest neighborhood, but it's mine, and that's the way we need to approach this. If people just cooperated and did what they could, everything would be a lot better. Ricardo, it's been such a great show, and I'd love to do this at least every 2 to 3 months, if that's okay with you.
Yes, I think it's a good way of doing this, and having the ability to show my screen is also great. And we can show some of the work interactively here, and I think it's great. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it, and folks, while I wrap up the show, I'm gonna let Ricardo go ahead and sign off. Thank you, Ricardo, for joining us today, and we will look forward to seeing you in about 60 days.
Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Folks, that has been the most informative and most productive show I've done since I've been with PCT, and I hope to do that again with other department heads in the city. So, with that, folks, I will say, if you need to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me at Wheeling the Pathway to Life at wheelingthepathwaytolife@gmail.com. That's Wheeling the Pathway to Life@gmail.com. And please leave your comment and let me know what you need, and I will do my best to either get the person that you're talking about on the show, or at least express your concerns for you, or have you on the show to voice your opinion for yourself. This has been Brian Fitzpatrick bringing you an interesting episode of Wheeling the Pathway to Life. Please join us again next week. Thank you for joining us this week, and we will see you next week. Thank you.
Can bury the workmen, but the work will go on. You can silence the voices, but you can't stop the song. 'Cause when the spirit's moving is where we'll be done. You can bury the workmen, but the work will go on.
Okay,